I want to bring in a very special guest. He's with the Chattanooga Times Free Press. And if you don't know, in this day and age of newspapers kind of bumbling along, the Chattanooga Times Free Press just continues to kill it and does a great job. We're joined by Stephen Hargis, who handles preps. And I think he's a sports editor, too. He's got like 15 titles. What is your official title there on your business card, if we even have those anymore?
Yeah, it is sports editor, but like you said, when you're this day and age of newspapers, you pretty much have to wear all hats. Cover high school, college. Of course, we're kind of like, oh brother, where art thou? The line where they say you're a geographical anomaly. We're 2 hours from everywhere, so we cover the Falcons, the Titans. So yeah, you kind of have to do a little bit of everything, Dave. Like you.
Yeah. I know the feeling. All right, let's talk some Boo Carter, Mr. Football. I didn't think that was a great surprise. What were your thoughts?
I didn't either. When we met at TWA, of course, the process for it, just so everyone knows, I mean, it's based solely on regular season. So playoffs don't matter at all. We meet and vote. There's 9 of us on the Mr. Football Committee that meet at TWA the Tuesday before the playoffs actually begin, and we discuss, the players from our area who we feel like should be a finalist and potentially a winner. There's a list of coaches' votes that we look at to kind of get an idea of how the coaches around the state feel about it. So once we saw those votes and we discussed who else there was in 6A, I mean, I went into it kind of feeling like, Boo Carter should be the guy in 6A, and I think everyone else kind of pretty much felt the same. Those who had seen him play felt that way, and those who saw the stats certainly felt that way. I mean, the thing with Boo, David, you know this as well as anybody covering recruiting. A lot of times when you go, if you didn't know who Boo Carter was and you'd only heard of him and you went to a Bradley Central game and tried to find him, it wouldn't take you more than 1 or 2 snaps to figure out who that guy is. I mean, he even on a team like Bradley Central that had 5 or 6 other guys who are going to play FBS level, including a teammate of his, Marcus Gorey, that's going to Tennessee. It didn't take long to figure out who Boo Carter was. He's just special.
So I want to ask a little bit about Boo Carter, where you think he's going to play, Stephen, because he's still an athlete committed, and there's been talk. My gut tells me defensive back at Tennessee, and that also just feels a direct need. But where are you leaning with him at Tennessee when he gets to college?
I mean, he certainly could play safety for them. He doesn't have the length really. I think like Tennessee likes those long corners. Like Marcus Gorey, his teammate, is 6'1", 180. He fits the bill more as a corner. I think Boo, if he's on the defensive side of the ball, he's a safety, kind of in the mold of, you don't want to put. I'm not saying he's going to be the player that Eric Berry was, but kind of in that mold where he's not. He's a thick kid, but he's not a real tall kid. He's probably 5'11". So I think they may start him there just because of need. Tennessee has a need in the secondary, and he's a playmaker that can get to the ball quickly, makes a lot of tackles in the backfield, gets there to disrupt receivers quite a bit. Can break up passes or a fast break on the ball to make an interception. I also think that he's just so dynamic with the ball in his hands. It would be a good idea to get him on the field as a punt or kick returner. I just think he is. If you're not going to play that guy on offense, at least give him a shot as one of those special teams return guys, because anybody that saw him play sees, there's just a different level to how quickly he can change directions and then hit top speed again. And I think he could be a real playmaker for him on special teams.
Chattanooga Times Free Press, Stephen Hargis joining us. He's covered Boo Carter extensively. Recruiters never lie, Stephen. So what if they told Boo that he's going to play or have an opportunity to do? Not that will be the case in a year, but what if they told him?
They have told him that he will get a chance to play multiple positions to see where he fits best. That he will start, probably get a look at safety, as we just mentioned, but that they will also look at him as a slot receiver and on special teams. I mean, I asked him several times throughout, before the season, during the season, after the season, if he has a preference. And in Boo is, I think Tennessee fans will learn this throughout his career. He does not lack for confidence in himself, and there's a reason for that. I mean, he's been special since he stepped on the football field as a little leaguer all the way up through. So he's even at those elite camps, he's been the guy who made plays. And so Boo has always answered the same way: wherever they put me on the field, I'm going to make plays. I'm going to be a difference maker. Of course, obviously, he does admit, people notice guys with the ball in their hand. He said, if they decide not to put me on offense, he said, I'll just have to get to the ball and get it in my hands in other ways. So.
Love that attitude. I like that.
He's great. I think everyone who follows Tennessee is going to love it. At some point, as that kid gets older and gets on the field, if he lives up to the hype, you're going to love him. He'll be a quote machine for you.
Hey, sorry to jump in, but did he ever really consider Colorado?
No, he says he did not. And actually, I think we'll find more reasons of why, besides the fact of just being there that weekend when they were on, the Fox pregame show, ESPN game day was there. I mean, he wanted to be a part of all those festivities because he knew it was going to be a big party. He thought that would be cool. I'm thinking, guys, that there was also just some things that I've talked to some folks who are close to Boo. I think there were some guys who were going to visit Colorado that weekend that maybe didn't have Tennessee on their radar, that Boo went out there and has pulled them to get them to come to Knoxville. Boo is probably one of the biggest recruiters for Tennessee in this signing class. He was at Mr. Football yesterday on his phone, messaging some guys that had hit the transfer portal about he needs some dogs to come with him. So I think the trip to Colorado, the more we learn about this after signing day, I think that was out there just to kind of enjoy the environment. He had a good friend of his, Martellus Carter Jr., who's from Chattanooga, who was invited to come out there, that he went out there and kind of hung out with. But I think he also spent some time with some guys that he wanted to come visit Tennessee, get them to come visit Tennessee with him.
Interesting.
Which that's great to know, because that means that Dave was wrong, and I like that, Stephen. Whenever Dave's wrong,
a lot.
So Stephen, I want to talk about just from evaluating talent. I've followed recruiting throughout the state of Tennessee for years. I gotta admit, I'm from Memphis. I've followed Nashville recruiting and Knoxville recruiting pretty heavily, but I've never been as versed on Chattanooga recruiting as I should be. We know that largely over history, the level of competition at Tennessee has not been what it is in Alabama, Georgia, but it does seem like Chattanooga, for one of the smaller areas, it seems like players highly rated coming out of there are usually as good as advertised, as opposed to a lot of times Nashville. I joke all the time, but Nashville is the king of 4 and 5 stars that turn out to be bust in college more than any other place in the South. But Chattanooga seems to be the reverse. Is that so? Do you think Boo Carter's 4 to 5 star rating, based on his level of competition, I would say, would you say that's legitimate based on the talent in the area in Chattanooga?
Oh, I definitely think it's legitimate. He and Amari Jefferson, the receiver at Baylor, were, we had 13 guys in our area that will sign FBS, sign SEC, ACC, Big Ten scholarships. But he and Amari Jefferson really stood out even among those guys to me when I saw them play. I think Boo is one that, if he stays healthy, will certainly live up to his potential somewhere on the field. We just don't know where yet because he is so versatile. And to be honest, our area has had some dips in recruiting where we've had a long stretch here where we just didn't have the type of players who could play or could help Tennessee. I mean, maybe a few years ago they could have played at Tennessee, but they certainly wouldn't have helped them become what they should be. So I think that right now, this recruiting class that we just are going to have that signs now is probably the start of an uptick in talent level that we're going to have. Tennessee yesterday just offered Baylor junior running back Shakai Mills-Knight, who's a 6'1", 210-pound dude that his uncle trains sprinters in Canada, including Usain Bolt, and he had a run against Macaulay in the state championship game that was like 65 yards, where when he turned the corner, someone made the comment. They said he looked more like a track sprinter when he was running down the field, even at 6'1", 210. And I turned around and said, well, yeah, his uncle trains sprinters. So that kid has been trained as a sprinter probably for his whole life, and now has the body to, an SEC type body at running back at 210 pounds. So we've kind of had a downturn in talent for a handful of years, but now it's on the uptick. And I certainly think that Boo Carter will be one when he gets to Knoxville. He will live up to the hype.
Stephen Hargis.
Sorry, Dave, just one thing.
Oh, go ahead.
So does this mean Derek Dooley may finally recruit Von Bell?
That's still a running joke in Chattanooga, the day that Derek Dooley walked into his office and said, who's this Von Bell guy that we keep hearing about? Not to rehash old bad memories for Tennessee fans, but I mean, Von Bell had Tennessee posters on his wanted, grew up loving Tennessee, wanted to go to Tennessee, and then of course felt like they didn't want him, so he had to move on.
It was bizarre. I remember interviewing him, and I said, "Who are your top schools?" And he said Ohio State, and there was another school, maybe in Alabama. I can't remember who it was, but he said, and Tennessee, and kind of made this weird face, like they're not recruiting me, but they're one of my top schools. That was a very surreal time. It's good to know Tennessee is actually recruiting and getting out to Friday night football games now with Dooley gone. So Boo Carter is the best Chattanooga prospect since. I want to give you a second to think about that. It's brought to you by Don Self. Customer service still matters. Call 423-396-2126 or go to donself.net. He's a State Farm agent that I know everybody's looking for prices, but customer service still matters. He's been there for over 40 years and will take care of you in the Chattanooga area, donself.net. So Boo Carter is the best prospect in Chattanooga since blank.
It may be since Von Bell.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm thinking now. I mean, like I said, we've had kind of a downturn for about 4 or 5 years in terms of the level of talent. I mean, we would have 2 or 3 guys that could play SEC ball, maybe, but that would be about the extent of it. Maybe. And here's the thing: like one of our biggest, or a guy who turned out to be one of our best players, was a kid from Dalton, Georgia. Because as I mentioned, we're kind of a geographical anomaly. We covered down to Rome, Georgia, and even into North Alabama. So at Dalton, Georgia, they had Jahmyr Gibbs. So he was one of our guys that we had as one of our top recruits. But Jahmyr was not as highly recruited out of high school. I mean, a lot of people forget he signed with Georgia Tech because there wasn't a lot of recruiting buzz around him. They thought he was a little too slightly built. He was too small. Now we saw him just be electric on the field and kept thinking, if this guy ever got a chance to go somewhere else bigger, he could do it. And then obviously he showed it at Alabama and now in the NFL. But I'm thinking, as far as just the hype, would have to be probably since Von Bell. Of course, we also had a Darius Bowman just before then that was a 5-star, I think, in some recruiting services, 4-star, right up there. So I mean, I would put it at probably Von Bell would probably be the last one that had this kind of hype around him. And then, obviously this year, as I mentioned before, it's not just Boo. Amari Jefferson's a guy going to Alabama who Tennessee wanted as well at receiver.
So let me ask you this, Stephen. We'll let you go. We've been very generous with your time. I hate to keep you this long, but when I covered recruiting and there were dinosaurs walking around, but I remember when a guy switched high schools. And Nico's done this, so it's not unusual now. But a guy switched high schools. I always thought that was kind of a red flag and something to watch. I didn't think it was an indictment of his character, but it certainly, got my antenna up. Boo did that. Can you give us the backstory of why he switched high schools?
Yeah, absolutely. And normally it used to be, Dave, that it was. I think it's going to become more and more common now.
Me
and
too.
I think high school. There's even the discussion for a one-time transfer in the high school level for Tennessee that's coming up. So, I mean, we may see it a lot more coming up. But as far as for Boo, he started his career at Chattanooga Christian. He left there and went to Brainerd, which is where his mom and dad both went to school. When he went to Brainerd, he knew that he was going to be eligible to play basketball, but that because of TWA rules, he would not be eligible to play football at Brainerd because it's within the there's a 20-mile radius rule in TWA. So if you move within that 20-mile radius, you are ineligible for 1 calendar year to play a sport that you have an academic or an athletic record in. He had no athletic record in basketball because he did not play basketball at CCS. So he was allowed to play basketball at Brainerd, help them get to the state tournament semifinals, I think it was. But he knew all along, I'm going to have to transfer somewhere outside of that 20-mile radius from CCS. So it would have to be a Cleveland, a Bradley, going to North Georgia, something like that. He had several teammates, his 7-on-7 teammates, including Marcus Gorey, Caleb Martin, who was the quarterback at Bradley. He had played with those guys since Little League and on 7-on-7 teams, so he felt very comfortable going to Bradley Central. So that was the reason he actually made 2 moves there. The one from CCS was not grades, was nothing like that. It was just there was a disagreement that he and his parents had with the CCS administration. his mom decided to move him out of CCS, take him to Brainerd, where he would have been zoned to play before, and where she and Boo's dad had gone to school, so they were comfortable going to Brainerd as kind of a go-between until they decided where they wanted him to finish out his senior season. And once they got to Brainerd, they kind of looked around and decided that Bradley was probably the best fit because they had folks that he had played with and was comfortable with.
Yep. Well, like I said, it used to be a red flag. I don't think it is anymore. I mean, heck, you can do it in college. Stephen, how can we follow your work? I'm now following you on the Twitter or the X or whatever the heck Elon wants to call it.
Yeah, you can follow me there. It's I try to keep it as simple as possible because I'm simple-minded, Dave. It's just at Stephen Hargis on Twitter or X, and then obviously our stuff's posted every day, on timesfreepress.com. So you can follow us there. And just to give you one last little info for folks when they wonder about Boo, because those that don't know him, Damon Floyd, who's the head coach at Bradley, he's been there for 18 years, I think, as the head coach. And Damon said, he's not somebody who typically goes on and on. He doesn't gush about players. But he even tweeted about it yesterday, I think, and said that Boo is maybe the best teammate he's ever seen, as far as as a guy who could be a game changer. But he would come up to Damon during games and be like, "Hey, they're double teaming me here. I think Jay Allen or this guy is going to be open if we run this play. Basically, use me as a decoy kind of thing." He said, "Look, Boo wanted to get he said he was the first one off the sidelines to congratulate a teammate after a touchdown. He said, for a guy who could demand the ball, he said he never once said, 'Get me the ball.' He said, basically, we knew to get him the ball, but he was just a great teammate." So, I think the kid, from having followed him, I understand there's a lot of people who wonder, what kind of kid he is. From everybody, we did a story, and guys can find that on our website from a couple of weeks ago. We did a story where we went back and found his little league coaches, other high school coaches, even at CCS and Brainerd, as well as at Bradley, former teammates, talked to him, and they all had nothing but glowing things to say about Boo in terms of his work ethic and him as a teammate and as a leader. That's the main thing. His 7-on-7 coach actually said, "Look, we had some absolute dogs. We've got 6 or 7 guys who are going to play in the SEC or the Big Ten on that team." He said, "But if the lights went out and you're walking down a dark alley," he said, "I'm walking next to Boo Carter because he's the guy among all the other guys that nobody wants to mess with and that everybody else wants to follow." So that to me was just high praise from someone who really has some absolutely unbelievable players on his team to single out Boo and say, and even his son. This is Martellus Carter Sr. we're talking about, and he's got Martellus Carter Jr. coming up, who's a 4-star athlete. And he said, "Look, Boo, everybody knew Boo's the dog. Boo is the guy that everybody else is going to follow and nobody else is going to mess with." He said, "Everybody wants to play with us because nobody wanted to play against Boo because he'd embarrass him."
So what we're saying is Boo Carter is the Steven Jackson. If Ron Artest goes and runs to the stands and Boo Carter's his teammate, Boo Carter's going to follow and beat up a fan just out of loyalty, right?
I think we all would do that. I'd back Steven if we were like at SEC Media Days and, I don't know, Eli Drinkwitz jumped him. I'd take out Eli for you, Steven.
If I need help with Eli Drinkwitz, I need help with him. Let's just be honest, guys. Come on now.
There's some other dudes along the lines that maybe we need help with, like an Orgeron, but Big Ed, I'm not messing with him. I'll hold the door open for him and say hello, sir, and let him walk through first. Yeah. Chattanooga Times Free Press, Stephen Hargis. It's a great newspaper in this day and age where there's not a lot of them. So and you can actually find their stories on their site, which is awesome. You can't at other websites. So keep it up, Stephen. I certainly appreciate it. Hopefully we can do this again.
Anytime, guys. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Caleb.
I appreciate it, buddy. Stephen Hargis. How cool is that? I mean, I thought Boo was a good addition before that conversation, and now I think he's like the biggest addition since Nico.
Well, I mean, as far as
he's recruiting for Tennessee. He went to Colorado and said, "You guys should check out Knoxville."
That's crazy that he went to Colorado to recruit for Tennessee. That's the story of that. Yeah, I'm with you. And by the way, I know you covered a lot of the high school drama, Dave. I've commented from like a lot of players. When I used to follow the NBA draft and players came out of high school, a lot of the players that came out of high school switched high schools a lot. I mean, LeBron James got suspended his senior year of high school. Remember, because of all that controversy with the car and
I do. Like I just and I'm not saying that was again an indictment, but it always, put my antenna up. That, and if you're late to qualify was the other one. Have you ever noticed that everybody qualifies now academically? Did our society get that much smarter? Because there was always 4 or 5 guys that didn't qualify per class.
I mean, well, no, they got smarter in the fact that they realized how to do a workaround to qualify. That's the funny thing about academics is you could sometimes not be smart enough for academics, but you could be smart enough to get around not being smart enough for academics. I mean, only Derrick Rose was stupid enough to get caught not taking the SAT.
Yeah, here's my goal. I'm gonna go ahead and share it. I shouldn't share it. Should I share it? Boo needs an NIL on recruiting alone. He needs a deal, says Evan. Jacob Warren's going to go be an NFL star next year. Could we use the ball report with Boo Carter? Just throwing that out there.
That'd be great if you could get him. I mean,
throwing that out there. I would be scared to put a lot of pressure on a freshman. I will say that.
And look, again, I told you I hadn't covered it a lot, but like everybody that I've ever heard highly touted out of Chattanooga has always worked out coming out of Chattanooga. That's an area that, like, when they are highly touted, scouts and recruiters don't miss the way I've said they do in Nashville. By the way, Nashville's second. It's not the most missed. The most missed city. You know what it is, Dave, right? With talent, by far, the most missed area.
I thought you said don't you think Nashville?
Nashville's number 2. Dallas is number 1. Dallas area has the most. Texas recruiting is so overrated. It's insane.
Well, especially for Tennessee in particular. And that's probably the kind of angle you're taking. It seems like every guy that Tennessee got out of the state of Texas either got hurt, was a malcontent, or sold a bunch of weed. So, I mean, that, and I'm not going to specify the guy. Them in Texas has been one disaster after the other. I could literally sit down and without even Googling, write 8 names that have been total bust. And I can't think of one that's been good. Name me one guy from Texas that has been good at Tennessee.
Well, General Robert Nealon as the head coach. That's it. That's all I got. He's from Texas. But no, I agree.
Just play the rook card on me.
This is why Texas has not had the success on the field that they've expected to have. Their recruiting is overrated as heck. Okay, I talk about how Louisiana recruiting is underrated, and it is. Texas recruiting is massively overrated. It's not that good.
Well, not as a whole, because there's so many good dudes there.
No, it's still a great it's a great recruiting state. Okay. It's Florida's got better talent than Texas. It's not even close.
Oh, yeah.
Florida talent is way better.
No, I'm with you there. So it sounds like we're on the same page.